Several athletes, including DeMarcus Lawrence and LeBron James, have now weighed in on the death of another unarmed African-American man in police custody. Video of George Floyd's arrest showed a Minneapolis police officer with his knee pressed against Floyd's neck, while you could hear him saying that he could not breathe. He later passed out and eventually did die. The 4 officers on the scene have been fired, and an FBI investigation is underway. And Shannon, we have now seen many different athletes reacting to this incredibly tragic story, and I would like to hear your reaction.
Yeah, Jenny, we've seen this far too often, and what I'm feeling now is sadness, disappointment, heartbreak for his family, his community. And the question that I ask is that when will they hear our cries? When will they realize that they're hurting us? You know, you try to have these conversations, and every time, and it was funny, Skip, I woke up this morning and I had a general idea, and I didn't sleep well last night because I was going through my mind what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. And I was thinking to myself, what are some of the reasons that when we try to have these conversations, we end up going nowhere? And right on cue, Skip, a young lady, a white lady that I've been friends with for 20 years, Skip, she sends me a stat in which more whites are killed by police officers than blacks. And it dawned on me, that's one of the reasons. Because, Skip, when we say you're hurting us and you're having these confrontations with us that ends up with us being dead, you say, but Shannon, there are more whites than blacks that are being killed by police officers. Without providing context, there are 3 times the white population as the black population. Blacks are 4 or 5 times more likely to die at the hands by police officers than their white counterparts. And the most trusted, tried and true, one that they will always use, Skip, when you try to have this conversation about police brutality against black, what about the black on black crime? It's the same thing that why blacks have greater underlying health conditions than whites. Because for 400 years, our eating habits, we were forced to eat less than. So we developed bad habits. The same thing as the 400 years of oppression that's been placed upon us. The institution is systemic racism. That is the reasons why. Skip, they put nowhere in the police report that the officer had his knee on the man's neck for 10 minutes. That was not in the police report. Skip, what made my blood boil is what the police officer had his 170, 180-pound body, knee on the guy's neck, with his hands in his pocket. Skip, you know and I know, if you feel that there's a threat, there's no way you're putting your hands in your pocket. The man is handcuffed, flat. And then in the report, they said he had an underlying condition. I don't care what your conditions are. If somebody puts their knee on your neck for 10 minutes, for 5, 7 minutes, you're going to die. And then you're going to use that he had diabetes, he had a heart condition as the reasons, and not the fact that you had a knee in the man's neck? Skip, this is, and we got this on camera, and it doesn't seem to matter because we've heard the I can't breathe before. The Eric Garner situation, Skip, the same situation. What even more egregious, Skip, one of the officers is standing around looking at the sky like this is standard operating procedure. He's like uncaring. At what point do you say, man, I think he's got, he says, I can't breathe. You're going to kill me. We just watched a man die on live TV. And what do you say? Because more whites are killed by the hands of police, but we're disproportionate. We are a minority. But if you want to extrapolate that, think about that, Skip. Just think about this. If we had 180 million black men and women in America, with the way the police interact with us, can you imagine? Can you just imagine the death toll we saw this, Skip, in Brunswick, Georgia. It used to be, Skip, we thought it was just isolated. That would never happen here. Now we see it happen in Brunswick, Georgia. We see what happened in Minnesota. We saw the lady call the cops on a guy in Central Park, and she used the code, Skip. If you want the police to come in a hurry, African-American threatening, and they're on their horses. Come on, people. Skip, there are a lot of great white men and women in America, especially when I'm talking to the athletic community, and they have a lot of worthy cause, and they've raised money for a lot of worthy cause. When it was the flood that hit Houston, J.J. Watt stepped to the forefront, raised $40-50 million. They have guys that raise for autism and homeless. Skip, we need their voices on this one. Ben Franklin said it best, Skip. He said, justice will not be served until those unaffected are as equally outraged as those who are. Skip, Dr. King was marching for years, but you remember what happened. It took those 2 Catholic priests that came down south and got murdered for the world to start opening their eyes. And then what happened on Bloody Sunday when the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and that was broadcast live on CBS, that changed the dynamic. We need some of these powerful white men and women to lend their voices to say this is enough. I've seen enough, Skip. We are part of the human race also. And for so long, we've been looked down upon. We've been treated less than. We can't look and say, well, Shannon Sharp and LeBron James and a few are doing well, because that is the minority of the minority of the minorities. And it's not right. Now, the mayor acted quickly. He fired these guys. But justice cannot be served until somebody is incarcerated. Somebody needs to pay a penalty for taking this man's life.
Shannon Sharp, I hear every word you just said. Every word you just said is very painful for me to try to process. As a white person in America, I'm ashamed. I'm lost. I appreciated what LeBron James just posted on Instagram with the picture of Colin Kaepernick. And yet today, Shannon, I feel like Colin Kaepernick sacrificed his NFL career for this cause for no reason. It didn't matter. Mm-hmm. It didn't have much, if any, impact. All that kneeling, all that protesting, all of which I applauded, got us nowhere. It went for naught. The gnashing of teeth, the controversy went for naught. It leaves me empty because I don't know where to turn off the Ahmaud Arbery incident that you talked about, the killing of that unarmed black man in Brunswick, Georgia, which, by the way, is about an hour's drive from where you grew up in Glenville? Another small town in Georgia.
70 minutes.
70 minutes. You know, that happened, and Tom Brady stood up, spoke out, and I said, way to go, Tom. And some other white players spoke up, spoke out, way to go. All right, that's some progress. And here we go again. So, Shannon, it's like the old expression, it's too good to be true. This is too bad to be true. It just keeps happening. It's too evil to be true. It's too awful. It's too unthinkable to even be true. It just keeps happening. After all the billions of words spoken about this issue of unarmed black men and women killed or brutalized by white cops, it just keeps happening. After the billions of words, I feel like I've spoken a billion right here on Undisputed in all my years on television. After all those words, hoping to penetrate the psyches of white cops, to make them a little bit more enlightened, a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more aware that their actions can look like racist overreactions, that their actions come across as nothing but just heartless, ruthless police brutality aimed at black people. After all that, it just keeps happening. And to your point, after Eric Garner in New York City, now we have George Floyd in Minneapolis. I can't breathe. We have another I can't breathe again. Another one. And now that list just gets longer and longer, Shannon. All these black men have become household names for the worst possible reason. I just mentioned, now we got George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, and then do I dare have to bring up Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman / George Zimmerman? And then we got Michael Brown, we know Ferguson, Missouri. Yeah, we know Eric Garner, we know Tamir Rice, and we know Eric Harris in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we know Walter Scott in Charlotte. We can just go on. We could go on for the rest of this show. Oh, there was that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. And you can give me extenuating circumstances and blah, blah, blah. And I get it that white police officers have a difficult job, and it's a split-second reaction many times that can lose your life. I get that. But I don't get I can't breathe. I don't get it. I don't get kneeling on a man's neck when he's handcuffed face down on the pavement and you're crunching him to where he literally can't breathe. I don't need to hear about underlying conditions.